Howdy folks, I hope you're all well. This video is the partial 19 hauls that I was telling you about. Now, the reason I say it's partial is because unfortunately, by the time I remember to hit record here, we are already fighting the first Tormented mob, Execution of Arath, and we're already about 30% of the way through the dungeon in terms of enemy forces. So, without any further delay, we'll get into it. And I do apologise for missing the start of it. There wasn't too much going on, really. The first pack was nothing really of note. Unfortunately, the tank didn't keep the Huntsmaster mob kind of clumped with the rest. So, whereas the other two DPS in the group were able to go to town AoE, I was dealing with the single target mob, kind of out in the distance, not really able to cleave anything, which is fine. The tank actually in question was our lovely friend Stitch, who was doing an absolutely fantastic job, but unfortunately without having a grip or anything of that nature, having the multiple casters for the start of halls made grouping everything up rather difficult. So not keeping everything grouped on the Huntsmaster wasn't his fault. He was doing the best he can. It's just we didn't really have the kicks to cluster everything in because we're running with a Frost Mage and a Marksman Hunter. So anyway, let's get into the rest of the video. Unfortunately, because this was an actual recording...
Fine, I'm just recording from this point.
Ah, there we go. We'll mute the video so you don't hear double talking. So, yeah, we had done a few keys prior with these particular pugs. We'd done an 18 Sanguine Depths, we'd done a 17... Nope, I can't remember what the 17 is off the top of my head. But Stitch was doing the honours and tanking for me, and we were kind of going through. And this is what I mean by I think I've kind of reached a point where as a lone paladin I can't pug, because the moment I had Stitch with me and we were in like a tank and a Ret, we were immediately taken, and the groups went well, really. We had a few problems here in the halls that we will discuss as we go through it, but again, it was starting to get late. This was 11 o'clock at night. It had been a long day for a few people, and this was the last key of the night. So we kind of go through this without too much hassle. There are a couple of points where, obviously, with it being a Spiteful Necrotic week, I'm playing around and testing a few things. So I'm actually running Mechanicos rather than Pelagos, and that's because by hitting the Spiteful Shades, you can kind of keep the haste amp rolling. So what I should have done here is probably have actually used Cavalier preemptively to get the damage rolling, because the actual haste amp dropped. I released Spirit there. We find out that in this particular dungeon I was taking an incredible amount of damage because I wasn't getting dispelled. So in that particular situation, if we go back slightly, I believe I have the debuff while Thrash is going out. So there's no way, like I don't have bubble. So there was no way for me to really save myself. I could have probably, I could have tried to lay on hands had I reacted fast enough, but I don't think the global would have actually helped. So, what happens? Ah, that's why. It wasn't the fact that I had a debuff, but the groundskeepers, my wake had ripped aggro off Stitch. So that was on me. I went through my rotation and I wasn't really paying attention to the fact that I would have hit the groundskeepers. So, never mind, that's on me. The dispelling thing does actually become a problem, though, later in the key. Which is why I kind of thought that it may be a thing now. But it's fine. All in all, though, this was a good key and it was still score. But, as you can imagine, it was out of time. Actually, I'll take another. So, yeah, these shards here you find are taking a while to die. Again, my death doesn't help the situation, but it was slow going. So we pull Sogadon. Nothing too much to worry about. Stitch, being a monk, paralyzes the Houndmaster, so we don't have to worry too much about the thing. I do my usual thing of using Final Reckoning when we're pulled in. Immediately destroys the chains. And usually destroys at least 3 of them, which really, really helps the group out. It does cause some problems, though, in terms of pug groups, because sometimes, because I delete them so quickly, they assume that every chain is then going to be deleted. So it is something that you need to be wary of if this is the kind of strat that you're going to go for, but I tend to do it to feed into, like, execution sentences or whatever else. Or at least I try to. And that was Sogadon just being a pain in the rear. So we do have a Venthia in the form of our mage. So we can go for these slightly larger pulls, and we're not too worried about pulling the Stoneborn. Now, I don't... yes. You'll see here that I use my 1 minute, but I don't pop wings. Now, this was actually a deliberate thing, because I know that we've got less than 2 minutes before we face the next shard of Halkias. So, because the shards are problematic and are very, very dangerous for us, I actively decide to hold wings. Because you can see that my cooldowns are about to come back up. I have 25 seconds. We're about to take the Handmaster and the 2 dogs on their own, which means I can just focus on generating holy power, spending it in a way that means that when we go into the next pack, I will have the holy power I need to immediately burst. Now, Stitch is at 6 bleeds, 13 necrotic, and for the moment is fine, but we did discuss whether or not he'd need a bob. Now, that particular Handmaster jump, if I go back slightly, you'll see that she's about to cast Loyal Beasts. And if I stop it right there, I have 15 seconds left on my stun. I'm about to go for a Blinding Light. However, Stitch beats me to it and paralyzes the mob. And he got the sound cue for Paralyze going off. But what happens because of how in sync we are, essentially? So the Paralyze actually goes off for a fraction of a second. See if we can spot it and just stop it. So Loyal Beast. There. Stitch managed to paralyze it, and I broke the paralyze at the same time. So much so that the little Houndmaster has actually leapt into the air while paralyzed. But as you can see, there's nothing on there as a debuff to say that it's paralyzed. But you can see that the purple icons around it means that he did in fact interrupt it with a para. Anyway, just an interesting side note. Why it just randomly leaps at the end of a cast. And so yeah, I've got my minutes back, and Wings is everything lined up. So we're just going to wrap this pack up, and then I'm going to go to town on the Halkias shard. Or at least that's the plan. Playing with Mechanicos this week will take a little bit of getting used to. Having Divine Toll desync in AoE packs from Final Reckoning is very weird to play with, and I'm kind of surprised that I haven't made more mistakes in terms of trying to Divine Toll and then Final Reckoning and then realizing that I don't have Divine Toll. Because you can see there that my Divine Toll has 15 seconds less of a duration than Final Reckoning does. But yeah, me and the Hunter kind of had the same idea. And because I actually stayed alive this time and didn't rip aggro, we end up in a lovely situation where the Shard of Halkias isn't going to live anywhere near as long. That was a Brawn to the rescue. To which Stitch and I were having a good right old chuckle over that. Like, one of the very few times Bron's appearance actually is beneficial, rather than the likes of, say, Ellesmere having Brawn kill him. I think it's Ellesmere that I'm thinking about. Video was doing the rounds of basically a bunch of mobs getting punched back behind the paladin in question, and as a result they got deadly thrusted and just one shot. So we decide that the mage kind of subtly tells us that they want double bat, so Stitch paralyzes the Handmaster to keep the patrol in place and pulls the loyal Stormborn. And because Brewmaster or Monk's taunts actually increase the movement speed of what you've taunted, we can kind of get away with that. So we end up with both loyal Stormborns, and I try to hold my own in terms of DPS, but it actually gets quite funny because you can't keep up. Now, as you can see, I am using the Divine Resonance Legendary here. And this was because it was a 19 Halls of Atonement, it's tyrannical, and the last half of the dungeon is boss fights. It's pretty much boss. But in hindsight, I actually think running Tempest the Lightbringer in this dungeon would have been better, because at the same time, like, it would have made this first 70% of the dungeon considerably faster. I think the only exceptions would have been, or the only exceptions maybe this week to running Divine Resonance as a legendary will be the likes of Theatre of Pain. But I can't really see me doing a 19 or 20 Theatre of Pain this week. I might, you never know. See what groups we get into. Mage got caught out and unfortunately goes down. I get clapped there by glass shards. And that there, boss had 400k health left, you saw her popped wings. This kind of goes off the back of what I was saying in the other side key, where I need to try and get better at using my wings when it's off cooldown to maximize the usages that I get within the key. And had the position have been a little bit better in between where Halkius was stood when he died and this particular pack, with a Cavalier charge I could have got over and made better use of wings here. But that is something that will come with time and come with practice. So not too bad, but it's good to see that I'd taken stuff away from that DOS key and was trying to implement it here. I might not necessarily see the same performance from key to key, but it's still good to try and improve. Now, remember how I said that dispelling becomes a problem? Yeah, keep your eyes out. Tell me what you think, here's your call to arms for today. Comment below what you think Stitch died from. You ready? Here we go. So, Stormborn Reaver. As I said with the communication thing, I mark Stormborn Reaver as mine. I'm talking with Stitch. This is where we're at. Star is my kick. I go to burst. I'm bursting. Like, Stitch still has aggro. I now have threat. Still have threat. Obviously, Stitch is dead, but... So, what do you guys reckon was the cause of Stitch's death there? There's your hint. Anyway, run back to the pack. I called to Stitch that Star is mine. Don't worry about Star, I will get the kicks. And he then focuses on the Stoneborn Reaver. So he gets unmarked. And the two of us then kind of just control the rest of this pack. Unfortunately, the 3 deaths there could have been avoided and should have been avoided. But you can see that things just got a little bit too much, I think. But it's alright. We've got 14 minutes, 3 bosses. Yeah, we can do this. Maybe. It'll be close. But we are going to invis. So Stitch has pulled more than enough. So we can just pop potion and run through. So we're out of combat. Stitch rolls, hits his invis pot, so he gets there faster. Me and my lumpy Tauren ass have to just kind of waddle. Now, I know with invis pots you can usually just run through things, but I have a nasty habit of still somehow ass pulling things. It's these cheeks. I swear it's these cheeks. Now, again, kind of in vain with Stitch's death, we kind of see the same problem brought to bear here. Now, bear in mind we have 2 people here that could remove curses. Yeah. So I kick to bring them in. We try to sort things out. The druid dispels themselves to help through to deal with the healing. Unfortunately, that means we're in a position where not all of the little guys get killed, which starts shooting us in the rear end very shortly. Because obviously this particular boss is about how you control those ads. So anyway, it's on me. I can't get to it, so I just have to stand somewhere relatively safe. Have to burn lay on hands. And I try to deal with the ads. I end up wogging myself as well here. I get caught by the circle, which means I'm taking unnecessary damage here, which I'm not too happy about, but I can keep myself alive for it, so it's fine. I get clipped twice there by Blood Torrent, and I go down to cast. I get resurrected, I avoid the leap. The Stitch actually got dispelled at the last minute, thankfully, and managed to roll out, which was good, because had he not, we'd have been in a little bit more trouble. My cooldowns are all back, so I wait for ads to spawn now. Because I could have burst, but we decide to deal with the ads. Now, I sacked the druid here because the druid actually ended up standing in the circle, and I think it's fair to say that my sack is what saved him. 30% damage reduction. Now, me and my thick ass thought that, you know, I'd be able to do more damage to all of them with Final Reckoning, thinking the Final Reckoning was bigger than it actually is. Yeah, there's a joke in there somewhere. I'll let you guys find it. But we managed to control the ads, thankfully, and Echelon goes down without too many other problems. So, there's that. He does take a while, and he does eat a considerable amount of time. But we just focus We just focused the boss at this time, because he had enough health that we could just burn him and forget the ads. So, Incinerator goes first. Stitch is marked it green, so I know that Stitch is going to kick first. And this is kind of how we're talking about kicks in the group. And so now he's marked it star for me. I know that's my kick. Now it's green. And Stitch is manually doing this in between tanking. So kudos to him for that, for enabling me and letting my lazy ass get away with it. Now, the monk couldn't take that one because the mage beat him to it. So the next one is Stitch's, and it is still green as a result. So I trust, and he takes it. Now it's yellow and it's for me. And that's kind of how Calamity operates. So, for instance, our friend Ark, who plays Shaman, his kick is blue. And we have conditioned him to play in such a way that if you mark it blue, it will get kicked. Especially if it's a Goliath in Spies of Ascension. Mark the Goliath blue, and you're never going to have to worry about them getting a cast off. Ever. It took us a while to train Ark like that, but he's trained. We just need to get him to look at the key affixes now before he goes into a dungeon. Because I must admit, it was quite funny last week when it was Grievous, and he decided he was going to be like, oh yeah, I can come heal a key. And then it was like, we got in, we started the key, what are the affixes? Grievous. And he was like, no, I don't want to do this no more. I don't want to. He was like, it's too late. The key's already started. But anyway, so Stitch and I are talking at this point about how he's going to do this next pull. He's going to pull and we're going to fight in the smaller room. Because I wasn't sure if he was going to pull out. So, yeah. Not too much to worry about here. Stitch does kind of do a bad and gets inappropriately slapped around a bit. Which immediately resulted in melee on hands. Because he got hit by the thrusts from the Dark Blades. Maybe he was reacting to my pull-out joke. I don't know. But anyway. So, we deal with yards. Wings has been popped. Because I know that we're likely to do a double pull. And do the Loyal Stormborns and go straight to the boss. And here I am trying to maximize my wings up time. Because at the end of the day, we have 7 minutes. So we're actually skipping Oros Cold Heart this time, which means that we're giving up on Uncivil Etiquette as a DPS increase, which doesn't make too much difference here. But the snare on the last boss is quite bad. So we end up in a situation where you have to be very, very careful about how you use your mobility, and you have to use your mobility much sooner. Now, here, I probably made a really, really bad call. I was dancing out and kiting the fixate mobs to the other things to keep that one next to Stitch free for when I had wings back. Or at least, that was the intention. In hindsight, I should have just kited to the nearest one and let Stitch move it around for me. But I am a dingbat, so we're going to go with, I tried to be good and failed at it. Because, you know, I use special. So, yeah. Kicks are pretty much a free-for-all. Stitch was kind of thinking that I was getting the my Uncivil Etiquette buff until I told him that it was actually Oros that gives it. Because obviously Sogadon gives health bonus, and both Incinerator and Executioner both give Champion's Brand for the Mastery Amp. Although I do actually need to double check to see whether or not Necrotic Blade is worth using on Tyrannical weeks. I don't think it is, and I still think the Mastery Amp is probably going to be better, but it's worth double checking. Because I feel like I need a little bit more single target DPS at the moment. Because you'd be amazed at how much you actually rely on Divine Resonance for the extra Holy Power generation through a rotation. Like, damn, you can feel the difference. But at the same time, you can feel the use of not having Tempest of the Lightbringer on AoE packs when you've been playing with it solid for a week and a bit. You feel the changes, my man. You feel them. But Tempest of the Lightbringer is probably going to see a much larger resurgence as well come 9.1.5 when they actually remove the target cap on it. So we'll probably end up in a situation where for the larger packs we will see a noticeable DPS increase, assuming of course that Blizzard don't decide that because they're increasing the damage or removing the target cap of Divine Storm, they reduce its damage, which is a major concern of ours. But we will see when we get notes closer to 9.1.5. Anywho, not a lot to say really for this particular room. Tormented Souls are just a hunt around and kill, try not to die to fixate. So if we skip 30 seconds, you can see that we're still in this room. We got 3 minutes left. The ads are still taking an age to die. We did come back to me just immediately utilizing Bop on Stitch, as was the call, because he was actually quite high in terms of his necrotic stacks, and things were getting a little bit hairy. So I think all the souls are dead now, so it's now just the manifestations that we need to deal with, and Inquisitor Cigar should have popped wings. Yeah, I should have popped wings, and I didn't, because I am a moron. So, skip 30 seconds, the Cigar is still alive. I still haven't used wings. Yeah, and I've got 30 seconds back until I get Final Reckoning and things back. So, although I was talking about how my wings usage was better in the previous, like, in the first half of the dungeon, it really went to crap as soon as there was a time constraint, because Lord Chamberlain, I held wings, worried that, you know, we're going to pop Bloodlust at the start of the boss. I need to do as much damage as I physically can and try and do, like, you know, 20, 30k DPS, and kind of remembering that I'm in the wrong gear set for that. Because although I have my Divine Resonance Legendary on, I don't have all the mastery and versatility that I do when I'm in my raid set, because I don't have the haste amp from Old Warrior's Soul. So my burst wasn't anywhere near as impressive. And to put it into perspective, had I have used my cooldowns on Inquisitor, we'd have probably have got here faster, which would have given us more time, and then I would have been able to use my 2 minutes / 1 minute bursts respectively at different parts of the fight, and when it was much more dangerous. Now you can see here that I'm pretty much stood inside the boss's hitbox, and I am taking 2 of the beams. I've then bubbled so that I'm not taking any damage of the beams, and you can do this. By splitting the damage between 2 individuals with high defensives, we end up in a position where we're making the healer's job easier, and our two ranged DPS can kind of just stay and deeps. One benefit of fighting Oros as a paladin, or leaving Oros up when a paladin, is the fact that we can freedom the debuff off, which means that we're not actually impaired during any dangerous moments. Now, the hunter should have disengaged there and didn't, unfortunately, which did cost us 5 seconds. Not that those 5 seconds were, you know, terribly impactful, because at the end of the day, we do only have 15 seconds left and 40% of the boss fight remaining. Now, in hindsight, I should have saved Bubble for this section, because the healer's running wasn't using any real healing cooldowns, because there they used Convoke. So 3 of us end up taking it this time. So you've got me, Stitch, and the hunter. And obviously 35 seconds based on the deaths and my cooldown usage. And this could have been timed. Because you can see there that I'm getting yet another wave of 2 minutes in. So I could have definitely used my cooldowns during Inquisitor. Kind of sucks, but that's why we're doing these reviews. I can look at them and decide what went well, what didn't, and for the next time I do this key, I can improve. And obviously you guys can comment below, and if there's anything you spotted that needs improving, it can still be an improvement. So the score didn't come up there. And I don't know why, but it was actually a +4 score. It was either a +4 or a +8. which is what now put us at the... no, sorry, I think it was +6, because I was 2242 before we started the key. So, yeah. All in all, the key went pretty well. Definitely had its moments where it could have gone better, and I definitely needed to better utilize my cooldowns. But it was a marked improvement from the 19 DOS that I did. Still going to work on it though, and we are going to make a special note of the cooldowns and how I use them in the next video I do and the next key we review, which will either be tomorrow or Tuesday, depending on when I can get into a group for keys. So in the meantime, I hope you all have a lovely weekend, or what remains of it at least, and a lovely start to your week, and I will hopefully catch you for stream tonight when the guild takes on Sylvanas. Hopefully. In the meantime, folks, take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.